For 3.5 seasons now, From has been quietly stacking the deck. Every vision Jade has had since he crashed into town, the man that was crushed by the rock, the Civil War soldier, the guy pinned to the tree drinking the blood from a skull, Christopher, we just thought they were ghosts. Echoes of some kind, pieces of the town's history bleeding into Jade's head because the symbol marked him. But episode 5 just told us the truth, and this is going to jump into major spoilers for the episode, so without further ado, 3, 2, 1, they're not ghosts, they're not echoes, they are all him. If you haven't watched my episode 5 review yet, that one dropped earlier this morning. The link's in the description right under the like and subscribe button. Go give it a watch and come back. We're hanging out there in that one. It's quite a long one. Anyway, this video is the deep dive companion to that because it was a big reveal in this episode with Jade's mushroom trip, and every single version of Jade we've seen across 3 seasons of the show. What each one tells us about the cycle, and the line that I think rewires everything we thought we knew about Christopher is what we're talking about in this video. Quick spoiler warning for everything through season 4 episode 5 because we're spoiling all of it. We're jumping right in, and here's the deal. Here's what I want you to hold on to for the next 15 or so minutes, or commit it to Claude Memory or GPTs if you're feeling so adventurous. In episode 5, on a guided mushroom trip with Boyd as his anchor, Jade is shown a vision of 4 men playing violin outside Colony House. It's the crushed guy, it's the soldier, the skull guy, and it's Christopher. Young Jade is standing there with him, and he says one of the most important lines of the season. Some of them, and many more. That's part of everything that needs to be internalized. We have not seen every version of Jade, not even close. We've seen the ones the town chose to show him. Nonetheless, the goal is to walk through every version we know about, every version that's implied, and figure out the rule that connects them. So let's get into it. Before we talk about past lives, you have to remember who Jade is in this one, because his real-world backstory is doing more work in season 4 than people give it credit for. Jade Herrera grew up in France. His grandmother raised him there. When he was 12 years old, she died, and he got shipped back to the States to live with an uncle. He told us in the show that he didn't want to leave her even though she was dead right in front of him. That's the level of attachment that we're dealing with. A kid who doesn't want to abandon the body of the person who raised him. He grows up. He builds a software company. He sells it for what we're told is a serious amount of money, and he and his best friend Toby go on a road trip to celebrate. New York City to Miami. They get drunk, they get reckless, and they crash into the town. Toby dies along the way at the hands of Sarah, but Jade lives. 2 things from that backstory matter for this video. 1, Jade is a man of science, as we know, a coder, an engineer brain, and when Tabitha first told him that she thought she was Miranda reincarnated, his response was the first law of thermodynamics. Energy is never destroyed, it's only transferred. That was him trying to rationalize the irrational, and that line is going to come back hard at the end of this video. 2, he speaks French fluently, and in episode 5, when young Jade appears in the mushroom trip, he speaks to him in French. Minnows in a shark's net. The town isn't picking French at random, it's picking the language Jade learned from the woman that he loved the most. The language he used as a kid before any of this even happened to him. That's definitely deliberate. Okay, now let's talk about the visions. The first vision Jade ever has on the show is in season 1, when he goes exploring and finds the root cellar. He climbs down, finds another wooden door, and inside is a body. A man crushed by a boulder jammed into an armoire. And on the wall next to him, painted in what looks like blood, is the symbol. For 3 seasons, we just filed this guy as just some creepy guy who was down there in the cellar. We didn't know what he meant. He was basically just a nameless corpse the town used to introduce Jade to the symbol. But episode 5 retconned him. That body, that was Jade. Some past version of him crushed under a rock in that cellar, and the town preserved his corpse like a museum exhibit and put it where the next version of him would find it. Think about what that means. The town didn't just kill him, the town kept his body, set it up, used it. The first vision Jade ever has on this show is the town showing him his own dead body and letting him not realize it. That's a level of cruelty we have not been giving this place enough credit for. The Boulder is definitely interesting though. We've seen massive stones in this town before. The slabs the children are sacrificed on in the tunnels is a prime example of that. I don't think it's a stretch to wonder if he was killed at the ritual site. That's a theory worth holding on to. The Civil War soldier is the version that lets us start dating the cycle at least. This vision happens early in the series. Jade is Jim climbing a tree to try to get a radio signal in season 1, and while Jim's up there, Jade looks up and hallucinates the tree festooned with dismembered Civil War corpses, blood dripping down on him, the symbol carved directly into the bark, and he turns around and a Civil War soldier raises a rifle, shoots at him, then chases him into the woods and bayonets him. This was already weird in season 1 because Jade is having a Civil War flashback in modern day Fromville, America, wherever the hell he is. So Miranda, 40 years before Jade arrives, knew about a Civil War soldier in this town's history. And now Jade, who is Christopher reincarnated, and Christopher was Miranda's contemporary, is seeing him in visions. What episode 5 lets us do is connect those dots. The Civil War soldier wasn't a ghost Miranda happened to know about. The Civil War soldier was Christopher's previous incarnation. Or one of them, at least. I mean, I don't think Christopher, I don't know which one he was, to be honest. Either way, it means by the 1860s, there was already a version of Jade trapped in this town, dying violently, and somehow Miranda, who was Tabitha's previous incarnation, knew the story of his death well enough to pass it down. The cycle is absolutely not 40 years old. It is a minimum 160 years old, and that's at a very minimum. And given young Jade's many more line, there is almost certainly many other versions that go way further back than a Civil War soldier. The bayonet detail also really matters. He's not killed by a creature as we discover in this episode. He's killed by a person, by a fellow soldier, presumably, or at least what we know, people in the town. Maybe there were more soldiers, but you need to hold that thought just for now. Season 3, episode 3, Jade goes out with a group to the abandoned settlement for crops. He breaks one of those skeletal totems, urinates near the painted rocks. The show is laying it on thick that he's desecrating something, and then when he does, the visions actually start. He sees a man drinking blood from a human skull in the snow. Later, when Christy gets her foot caught in a bear trap, that vision intensifies. We see the same man, only now he has a knife in his eye, and he's pinned to a tree. This is the version that tells us the most about the type of place the settlement used to be. And just to be very clear, as I'm editing this, I realized I got the two of them backwards. He was drinking the blood when he was with Christy, but when he was earlier out peeing, that's when the knife was in his eye. Got it a little wrong. It happens sometimes. I'm sorry. Drinking blood from a skull is not a behavior. That is absolutely a ritual. That is a cult. Some version of Jade was at that settlement during a period when the people there were doing something that involved human skulls and ritual blood drinking. And that version of Jade, based on the way that the body is presented, knifed and nailed to a tree, was executed by the people he lived with. In episode 5, the mushroom trip uses this exact ghost. The skull guy walks up to Jade, hands him a skull of blood, and tells him to drink, and when he does, he says, "On cooey." Boyd is yelling at him that the blood isn't real, and young Jade is yelling at him not to drink it, but Jade ends up drinking it, then he sees spiders in it and throws it up. And young Jade goes in French, shit. I don't know why, I just felt like it would be funny to say it that way. Now, why is that detail in the show? Because the skull guy version of Jade did drink the blood. He participated in the ritual. He was complicit in something at that settlement before they turned on him and killed him. And in the trip, Jade just symbolically repeated his ancestors' mistake. This is the version that complicates the heroic Jade narrative, and even though they mention everyone tried and failed to save the children, maybe this was part of it, and maybe him drinking the blood blood was him trying to do it and then he got crazy or something. I don't know. Either way, not every past life of his was a saint, and a lot of people in the eyes of this town right now don't really think Jade's a saint anyway, so it doesn't give too much there. Anyway, some of them were drawn into the dark stuff before the town disposed of them. Christopher is the one we know by far the most about, and ironically, until episode 5, he was also the version we had the most wrong. Christopher lived in this town roughly 40 years ago during Victor's childhood. He was, by Victor's own description, a fundamentally happy person. Funny, the kind of guy who carried around a ventriloquist dummy named Jasper and made people laugh. And by the way, Jade, Jasper, both gemstones. The show planted that clue in season 2, and most of us just missed it. Then Christopher started seeing the symbol. He withdrew, he got cold, and the boy in white appeared to him in the church basement and told him the answers to the end are in the beginning, telling him that he has to go through the bottle tree to save the children. Christopher refused and he got angry. He walked away and rejected every bit of it. And then that night, Miranda hid Victor in the root cellar specifically because Christopher didn't know about it and told him to stay there until morning. When Victor woke up, everyone in the town was dead. For 3 seasons, a lot of people online speculated that as Christopher snapping and him killing everyone, or at least some sort of thing happened, but Miranda was hiding Victor from Christopher because he went so crazy. Then the season 3 finale flipped that. Christopher and Miranda were trying to save the children. They were the good ones. They had a daughter together who was killed in the original sacrifice, and they failed. But episode 5 flips it again, and this is a big thing. Young Jade's line, once they learn the truth about who you are, that it was you that the children were calling for. First they blame you, then they hate you, eventually they kill you. That means Miranda wasn't hiding Victor from Christopher. She was hiding Victor from the town. The other residents had figured out who Christopher was. They decided he was responsible. They were coming for him and they got him. Christopher didn't kill the town. The town killed Christopher and the monsters cleaned up the rest after the deal was already done. That reframes the entire massacre. That reframes Victor's whole childhood trauma, to be honest. And it sets up Jade in season 4 to potentially face the exact same fate because the people in town are already whispering about him and Tabitha. And for the record, people in the town never liked Jade, so it's just adding fuel to the fire. Anyway, here's the line. Here's the entire show in one French phrase. Young Jade is standing up there with Jade in the mushroom trip. All 4 of his past selves are playing the violin, and Jade asks the question we've all been asking. What killed them? Young Jade says, you know who. Then in French, he says, minnows in a shark's net, and Jade instantaneously gets it. As I mentioned before, they weren't killed by the creatures. They weren't killed by the man in yellow. All of them were killed by the people in town, every single one of them. And let's run the list against that rule. The man crushed by the boulder, found in a sealed cellar, body preserved. That is not how monsters dispose of victims. That is how they dispose of someone they want to forget. The Civil War soldiers, bayoneted. Soldiers are killed by other soldiers. By their own side in this case, hunted through the woods. The skull guy, knife in the eye, nailed to a tree. That's his execution. That is the settlement holding a trial and carrying out a sentence. Christopher killed during what we thought was a creature massacre, but episode 5 strongly implies that the residents got to him before the monsters got to anyone. The pattern is unbroken. Every version of Jade dies in the same way. The town has figured out who he is. The town blames him and the town kills him. And then he comes back in a new body with no memory and the town just does it again. And that's exactly what minnows in a shark's net means. Jade and Tabitha think they're the predators. They think they're the ones figuring out the mystery. The other residents, the people they're trying to save, are the shark. Every time. Some of them and many more. The 4 versions we cataloged span maybe 160 years if the soldier is genuinely Civil War era. But the children in the tunnels, the original sacrifice that started this whole loop, predate Christopher by a long shot. Miranda's paintings, the bottle tree's age, prestige, the colonial architecture of this settlement. This place has been chewing through residents for centuries. So here's what's almost certainly waiting for us in future episodes or in lore the show may never explicitly confirm. A version of Jade was probably at the original sacrifice, the very first one. The one where Christopher and Miranda's daughter and the other children were killed for the deal that turned the residents into the monsters. That's the version where the loop started. That's Jade Ground Zero. He has not been shown to us yet. There were almost certainly versions in between. Settlement era, pre-Civil War, colonial era, given the totems at the ritual at the abandoned camp. For instance, the settlement era guy, that's definitely pre-Civil War colonial era, given the totems and the rituals at that abandoned campsite. And then the Civil War era, that's the soldier. Some intermediate era is the crushed guy. And then 40 years ago, it was Christopher. Now today, it's Jade. That's a minimum 5 visible incarnations across multiple centuries, and the show is telling us that there are more. I would bet good money we get a flashback this season. What I would love to see is this show give us some sort of flashback to one of these other versions, not just Christopher. And I'd also love to see a Christopher and Miranda specific flashback too, not just like them in their own lane. I'd love to see the two of them together figuring this out and see what that was like when they failed. Another one I'd absolutely love to see is the night that the original deal was made. I don't think we're there yet. I think we need more answers before that can even happen, but that would be freaking awesome. Either way, if there's any future where any of those things happen, I think it's very important to look for Jade in those scenes, in the way of his mannerisms, or the way that he carries an instrument, or something like that. Because speaking of instruments, the violin keeps coming up. The grandmom's death at 12 years old when he's playing the violin so he didn't have to admit that she was gone. That memory the town pulled up first in the mushroom trip. Music is the key. Music summoned the children at the bottle tree, as you know. Music is what all 4 past Jades were playing when the curtain dropped. The town is telling us that whatever Jade's soul is, it's tied to music in the same way if Tabitha is tied to the bracelets and the dolls. So that's something I'd watch for if there are any flashbacks. I want to end on another gigantic detail that we could talk about in a separate video. In the mushroom trip, after young Jade lays out the cycle, Jade asks the question, and Tabitha, what about her? Young Jade says, for Tabitha, it's worse. We don't know what that means yet. All we know is Miranda was eaten by the man in yellow. We also know that episode 4 gave us a very dark hint. Tabitha's flashback, the dolls, the man taking him away because they gave him nightmares, throwing him in the lake and dying, and his nightmares coming out of the lake. That's not Tabitha's memory, that's older. That's a version of Tabitha, I think, before Miranda, possibly the original one. The one whose nightmares became the dolls that almost killed Donna in this episode. If Jade's curse is that the town keeps killing him, Tabitha's curse may be that the town keeps using her suffering as the engine that powers the place. The dolls, the dreams, the bottle tree, the bracelets. Every cycle, Tabitha leaves a little more of herself behind and the town eats it. For Jade, every life ends with execution, but for Tabitha, every life fuels the next round. And I think that's worse. Young Jade was not exaggerating. So here's where we land with all of this. Every vision Jade had since season 1 was the town showing him his own past. The crushed man, the soldier guy, the skull guy, the Christopher, and many more that we haven't seen yet. Every single one of them was killed not by the creatures, not by the man in yellow, but the people of this town who figured out who he was and turned on him. And Tabitha's situation is somehow even worse. Jade's law of thermodynamics line in season 3, energy is never destroyed and only transferred, was him trying to give himself a scientific framework for what was happening. But episode 5 confirmed that it's not science, it's a sentence. A man of science is rational. A man of faith Jade now has to live with. The question for the rest of this season is whether this version of Jade, the one with all the previous lives' memories newly unlocked, can break that rule. Can he be the first version that the town doesn't kill? Can he get the residents on his side before they figure out who he is and decide he's the problem? I'm gonna tread lightly on that because I'm not really optimistic, but I do think what we're witnessing is the end of this cycle with our crew. And I think that because this is the first time any version of Jade has known the rule before the towns executed him for it. That's new, that's something, but now I want to hear from you. What do you think? Do you think this is the end of the cycle, or do you think this is starting a new cycle, or anything of the sort? I definitely want to hear from you down there. And with all of that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video, and until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.